Is it possible for a former colony to order its previously powerful colonizer to leave? That question isn't hypothetical in Côte d'Ivoire. It's the truth. The West African country has requested that French troops withdraw from its territory. As a strategic ally and host to French soldiers under colonial-era agreements, Côte d'Ivoire has been a pillar of French power in Africa for many years. The script is now changing, though. There is more to the French soldiers' departure than a simple logistical adjustment. It is a potent representation of Africa's rising aspirations for independence and self-determination. This is not a unique incident. It's a part of a larger movement against Western influence that is sweeping the continent, led by countries like Mali and Burkina Faso. Africa's story is being rewritten, and the existing quo is being challenged. But what comes next? Let's investigate. Imagine this. A country that had a close relationship with its previous colonizer abruptly orders them to leave. When Côte d'Ivoire requested that French forces leave its territory, it was doing just that. This is more than simply a political ploy. It sends a strong message to the world, declares independence, and asserts sovereignty. The geopolitical landscape has been upended by this decision, indicating a change that cannot be ignored. Port Bouilly, France's largest military installation in the Gulf of Guinea, is about to be turned over. This will be turned over to the local government. The anticipated pullout is being presented as a big step toward the nation regaining control of its defense infrastructure. Guys, this is ridiculous. As you can see, African nations are gradually beginning to drive France out. It began with Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, then moved on to Chad, and now it continues with Senegal. Something is going on here, you know. Ivory Coast. Since many people think the president of Côte d'Ivoire is only there because of the French, the country is said to be great buddies with France. You see, it's insane. Côte d'Ivoire was a vital base of operations for French military forces in West Africa for many years. Under accords intended to safeguard French interests and maintain regional peace, French troops were stationed there. These troops served as both reminders of the colonial past and defenders. However, the fact that Côte d'Ivoire's action isn't occurring in a vacuum is what makes it so noteworthy. African countries are rethinking their futures and reassessing their ties with foreign powers as part of a broader trend that is sweeping the continent. The decision to withdraw French troops is significant for Africa in general, as well as for Côte d'Ivoire. It represents a continent fed up with being viewed through the prism of dependency, fed up with having its affairs dictated to it, and fed up with outside powers that frequently put their interests ahead of that of Africans. This goes beyond military installations. It involves revising the regulations. However, it's important to comprehend the original reason French troops were in Africa before delving into the ramifications of this choice. Why is this such a pivotal moment, and how did we get here? We must go back to the colonial age, when European nations viewed Africa as a vast playground of power, in order to comprehend the significance of this decision. One of the most assertive nations, France established a huge empire in West and Central Africa. In the middle of the 20th century, when independence movements swept throughout the continent, the colonial era appeared to be coming to an end. However, the truth was much more nuanced. France didn't simply walk away. It struck agreements, especially military ones, to keep a sizable presence in its old colonies. These agreements were formally related to security. France would support the internal stability and border defense of its former colonies. But the distinctions become hazy with time. The purpose of these military installations was influence as much as security. Consider the CFA franc, which is linked to the French treasury and is still in use by several former French colonies. Critics contend that even after decades of independence, this arrangement has maintained African countries' economic reliance on France. The military was there for the same reason. By placing troops in key areas such as Côte d'Ivoire, France guaranteed it had access to important resources, a voice in regional politics, has the capacity to exert influence throughout the continent. This arrangement felt more like an extension of colonial power than a partnership to many Africans. Generations of people grew up wondering why their ostensibly independent nations continued to house foreign troops. Was stability or control the true issue here? Tens of thousands of demonstrators gathered outside the base 2 weeks ago to call for the French ambassador to leave the nation and for the base's troops to leave. The military junta that took over in July is holding France's ambassador, Niger, captive at the French embassy, French President Macron stated Friday. Late last month, Niger's military authorities issued an order for the ambassador to be expelled, but Paris refused, stating that it continues to recognize President Mohamed Bazoum as the only legitimate leader of the nation. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. After years of simmering, these questions have just come to a head. African leaders and activists of a new generation are questioning the status quo, calling for clarification and above all action. One of the most obvious indications that the tide is shifting is Côte d'Ivoire's decision to repatriate French troops. However, this goes beyond simply challenging France's existence. It's about facing foreign influence more broadly. Therefore, Côte d'Ivoire's choice was not unexpected. It is a component of a broader African movement that is driven by pride, annoyance, and a want for real independence. They discovered that their political clout, economic structures, and military pacts bound them to their previous colonizers. However, those connections are now being questioned and, in many cases, broken. For instance, consider Mali and Burkina Faso. Both of these countries were among the first to boldly oppose French hegemony. Both nations removed French troops earlier this year on the grounds that their presence was detrimental. As a result of their activities, other countries on the continent were prompted to re-evaluate their ties with foreign powers. The most recent development in this expanding tale of defiance is Côte d'Ivoire's action. Why now? One reason is the increasing dissatisfaction with the current situation. Many Africans believe that the promises of stability and progress made by Western powers have not been fulfilled. Rather, they observe ongoing hostilities, political meddling, and economic stagnation. A new breed of leaders who aren't scared to question the status quo have emerged as a result of this frustration. Leaders such as Assimi Goïta in Mali and Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso have come to represent resistance, demonstrating the viability of opposing and defeating foreign powers. It's not just about leaders though. The individuals are the focus. Ordinary Africans are calling for change throughout the continent. These voices have gained more traction because to social media, which has sparked a pan-African dialogue on self-determination, dignity, and sovereignty. Bye Bye France and Africa Rising are two examples of hashtags that are more than just fads. They are calling for a continent that is prepared to take back its narrative. The choice made by Côte d'Ivoire to join this movement is revolutionary rather than merely symbolic. It's a declaration that Africa is prepared to take charge of its own destiny, free from the lingering effects of colonialism. Although the continent has won, France has suffered a serious defeat. There will be a reckoning for France. Its global strategy was based on its influence in Africa for many years. Power was more important than security at military installations like the one in Côte d'Ivoire. They made it possible for France to obtain resources, exert influence, and continue to be a significant participant in the world. However, that tactic is now failing. Losing Côte d'Ivoire as a military ally is a symbolic setback in addition to a logistical one. It is a sign that the traditional methods of conducting business in Africa are no longer viable. This is more than simply a political disaster for France. An existential crisis is occurring. In a world where its influence is waning, how does a country that based its identity on global influence adjust? Losing credibility is more important than simply losing a base. Questions have been raised about France's role as an African partner, and the responses have not been encouraging. many Africans hold on to antiquated notions of power and control and view France as a holdover from colonialism rather than as a partner. In the meantime, the gap is being filled by other players. This is a crisis for France, not just a problem. Can it adjust to a new reality in which Africa is a partner with its agency rather than a pawn in its geopolitical game? Africa is forming new alliances as France withdraws, and China and Russia are at the forefront of this movement. These nations are filling the voids left by France by providing diplomatic ties, financial assistance, and military support. For example, Russia has made a name for itself in nations like Burkina Faso and Mali. It is delivering the kind of assistance that France used to monopolize through military contractors, grain shipments, and arms sales. Furthermore, Russia is not burdened with colonialism like France is. China, meanwhile, is adopting a different strategy. It has made billion-dollar investments in ports and railroads throughout Africa through its Belt and Road Initiative. Despite some criticism, these investments have established China as a significant economic partner. These new alliances signify a change toward a multipolar world for African countries. They're making sure that no one foreign power has too much influence by broadening their alliances. This goes beyond simply switching out one partner for another. It's about giving them choices. However, how are regular Africans responding as governments negotiate these new relationships? Africa's people are having a party, and not in silence. The atmosphere is electrifying throughout the continent. People have rushed to the streets, chanting, dancing, and waving flags in places like Abidjan, Bamako, and Ouagadougou. This is a very personal movement, not simply a political one. The departure of French troops is seen by many Africans as a long-awaited emancipation, an opportunity to regain their dignity and future control. It is impossible to overestimate the importance of this change. Foreign troops were viewed as emblems of authority and protection for many years. Although they provided stability, many Africans eventually felt that the price was too great. Growing up in the shadow of a foreign military presence, generations have wondered why their supposed independence came with such burdensome conditions. The departure of these soldiers now represents more than a simple adjustment in logistics. It makes a strong declaration of sovereignty. However, not everyone is completely comfortable. Although the withdrawal of foreign troops is widely supported, it is acknowledged that the path ahead will not be simple. Maintaining economic growth, guaranteeing political stability, and constructing self-sufficient defense systems are enormous undertakings. People are posing challenging queries. Will these countries merely exchange one type of dependency for another, or are they able to stand alone? Will genuine cooperation result from alliances with nations like China and Russia, or will there be other conditions? The prevailing feeling is one of hope in spite of these worries. Africans are taking charge of their story, and this seems like a watershed moment for a nation that has long been seen as a cornerstone of stability and economic development in West Africa. Côte d'Ivoire's decision to withdraw French troops is more than just another chapter in the continent's changing history. It is a news story. More than just another former French colony, Côte d'Ivoire is known for its cocoa output and advantageous position. It has served as a commerce center, a regional leader, and a representation of tenacity. It is now establishing itself as a leader in Africa's struggle for full freedom by making this audacious move. This choice is both symbolic and strategic. Beyond merely resisting its colonial past, Côte d'Ivoire is taking action. It's redefining its future in a planned move. The nation has been striving for years to lessen its need on outside forces, improve its infrastructure, and diversify its economy. This idea of independence is entirely consistent with the withdrawal of French forces. By assuming responsibility for its defense, Côte d'Ivoire is making a strong statement. It is prepared to lead rather than merely follow. However, the road ahead is not at all simple. It will need a large investment in defense infrastructure, training, and regional collaboration to replace the assistance offered by French forces. In order to preserve its independence, Côte d'Ivoire must also negotiate the geopolitical challenges of establishing new partnerships. With nations like China and Russia ready to intervene, it will be difficult to maintain these alliances' balance and reciprocal advantages. This is a chance for the leadership of Côte d'Ivoire to lead by example for the rest of Africa. It might encourage other countries to follow its example if it is able to maintain its economic momentum and develop a powerful, autonomous military. However, meticulous preparation, fearless leadership, and the backing of its citizens are necessary for success. As it embarks on this new chapter, Côte d'Ivoire is not only determining its own fate, but also contributing to the future narrative of Africa. So, is this Africa's fresh beginning? Africa is experiencing profoundly transformative, cultural, and economic shifts in addition to political ones. The continent has been seen through the prism of dependency for many years. The story always tended to highlight Africa's shortcomings, whether it was through economic alliances, military assistance, or foreign aid. However, that story is currently being flipped. African countries are increasingly turning away from the outdated structures that bound them to their previous colonizers. Beyond political independence, they are adopting a concept of sovereignty. Regaining control over resources, transforming economies, and encouraging innovation are the goals of this movement. It's about demonstrating that Africa is a leader in world affairs, not merely a participant. This is not limited to the level of government. Young business people, activists, and grassroots groups are spearheading transformation throughout the continent. They're upending antiquated structures, generating fresh possibilities, and fostering an international feeling of solidarity. Pan-Africanism, the idea of an independent, unified Africa, is growing from a dream to a genuine reality. Of course, there are difficulties with this fresh start. It takes more than token efforts to achieve true independence. From establishing strong institutions to developing sustainable economic systems, it necessitates fundamental reforms. In order to prevent new alliances, whether with China, Russia, or other countries from reproducing the exploitation patterns that Africa has fought so hard to break free from, caution is also necessary. However, the momentum is indisputable in spite of these obstacles. Every move to restore sovereignty, such as the evacuation of French troops from Côte d'Ivoire, is a step toward a continent that is truly free. Additionally, the rest of the world is being forced to pay attention as Africa rises. What will happen to Africa and France next? France is at a watershed. Its influence on the international scene, as well as in Africa, will depend on the decisions it makes today. Its foreign policy was based on its influence on the continent for many years. Economic links and military presence, the traditional model of influence, are no longer effective. The paternalistic style that had characterized France's ties is becoming less acceptable as African states claim their sovereignty. France will need to adjust to this new reality if it is to stay relevant. However, it won't be simple to adjust. China and Russia are two new competitors of France that are keen to fill the voids created by its withdrawal. These states are providing alternatives that seem more appealing to African countries, at least for the time being. The difficulty for France will be to interact with Africa as a partner on an equal basis, while letting go of its colonial mentality and looking for uncontrollable ways to contribute. It remains to be seen if France can meet this task. However, one thing is evident. The days of unchallenged French supremacy in Africa are past. The rules are being rewritten on the continent, and France must follow them or risk falling behind. And why does the world care about this? The tale is not limited to Africa. It's a worldwide tale. The repercussions of the changes taking place on the continent extend well beyond its boundaries. The growth of Africa puts the current power structures to the test and forces a discussion of collaboration, equity, and sovereignty. Africa is becoming a continent of leadership, innovation, and opportunity. African countries are demonstrating their ability, resources, and vision to lead on their own terms through trade agreements and climate measures. There is more at stake here than politics, which is why this moment is significant. It has to do with honor. It concerns a continent asserting its identity, confronting antiquated beliefs, and requesting a place at the table. The rest of the world will also need to adjust as Africa rises. This is a moment of pride and opportunity for Africans. It's a time for the rest of the world to observe, absorb, and reconsider. Those who are brave enough to assert their claim to the future will win it, and Africa is doing just that. Do you believe that Africa is doing it the right way? Should other countries expel France? Do you believe that France should avoid Africa in order to appease the people there? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.